I'm Alex Konrad. I'm the founder of Upstarts Media. You guys might know me from my 12 years at Forbes covering startups and VC before this. That's how the Lux team definitely knew me. But check out Upstarts if you haven't. And then with that, I will shut up as much as possible because we have three amazing speakers here. Ale from Runway, Rebecca from Suno, Kirby making films. I think a fun way to start out would be let's get everyone excited. Let's get them nice and woken up. So Ale, what is the coolest or most exciting use of Runway right now for creatives or artists today?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm super happy to be here. So we are doing a bunch of stuff. We are in the video and image space. We are seeing many of creatives, artists, filmmakers using our tools, our products to create different kind of creative outputs, such as short films, feature films, commercials, using it for exhibitions and for different kind of things. We are very happy that we introduced not long ago a new model to market that is unique of its kind, that is for video editing, video to video. Is called Aleph, and we're seeing a lot of how users are using it to empower their workflow to create things that they couldn't create before, projects that looks way more ambitious. And we're seeing this from a community from all over the world, from indie filmmakers in different places of the world to being used in Hollywood studios.
Awesome. You guys all should know Runway if you don't. Similarly, Suno, going from the film side to the musical scores, the audio, that side. What's most exciting with what Suno's doing?
Yeah, so Suno is a music company. As mentioned, we train our own models in-house. And I think there are a couple of things that we're super excited about. First, we actually just released our newest free model yesterday that is the best in the world. And so this allows everyone around the world to really amplify their imagination, even if they're not able to actually access our premium features. And I have a lot of stories about that, if we have time for it. But it's really exciting to see people from all around the world, from all backgrounds, be able to create music and actually be really, really creative in the way that they use our tool. And then secondly, we started actually releasing a series of products that are more geared towards professional musicians. So for example, we released a product called Studio recently, which is the first in the world generative audio workstation. If you guys are musicians, digital audio workstations. And so this uses our latest model, V5, and layers on a bunch of generative features to help Grammy-winning producers and bedroom producers produce a lot better music.
That's awesome. I wish I were musical enough to be a Suno user, but I will continue to recommend it. Kirby, on the creator side, you do make films and creative projects, and you use a lot of these AI tools. What is an example of a recent project or something that you have done with the technology that excites you?
My most recent project was called Infinite Remix, which was kind of an AI version of a successful series that I had called Everything is a Remix, which is how we build new ideas out of old ideas. And that's what AI is. It's generative media that is trained on everything we've ever done. So it was about exploring that story and using the latest and greatest AI tools to do it. So I'm big on the large language models. I find them very powerful for scripting and outlining and coming up with ideas and drafting and improving your scripts. What I really like about them is their ability to get out of the weeds, get outside your head, and they can give you sort of a basic take on what you're doing. We tend to get too zoomed in with what we're doing often. And then for video, I really like, for audio and video, I really like these tools for like kind of grunt work, like stuff that I don't really want to do. I feel like that gets undersold often, like just like doing background tracks and doing some simple compositing and all that sort of stuff. So I'm very into that. And I really like the hybrid approach of like using real footage and bringing it into the generative models and not just creating from scratch with AI, which I think it's hard to do something I think that really connects with people when it is completely generated with AI.
Well, we can definitely get to that. And there's been a couple juicy examples of that being tested out. But first, I'm curious, just to kind of build up our base of context here. That grunt work that nobody likes, that AI is kind of helping us with across a bunch of different categories. We've heard some already today. We will hear more. Is it pain points in grunt work that is kind of the door opener for you guys with Runway and Suno today, or what usually is the way that a new company or user gets excited to work with you?
Happy to go first. That's interesting because I actually think of Suno as really kind of a market opener, and a lot of people who have, use Suno have never made music before. And so I think that there's a class of people who are really excited by text prompting, and then there's people who have been in the industry who have audio samples that they can use, and then imagine variations of with Suno. And so I think there's a lot of different use cases for Suno. I think one of which is something that you described, which is creating backing tracks for films, and I think that's a really interesting use case. But I would say the one that's most interesting is I always think of like the look on someone's face when they realize that some of the lyrics that they wrote in their past, they can actually imagine with music for the first time, and that actually leads them down a journey of really understanding, investing more deeply into their own musical journey, whether it's arranging music through our digital audio workstation or exploring genres. So. I think there's both.
Yeah, in our case, similar to Suno, we see a lot of use cases that range from people who are creating short films to advertising agencies creating full campaigns and some others doing some kind of like more research type of like approach. But what we see the most often is for iterative thinking or iterative like speed in terms of like helping them visualize quickly some of the ideas. We work with people of ideas, people who more often are not working on a single idea and working on many of them. When we see, for instance, advertising working with a client, they often are working with several ones and they have a brief in their hands that they want to iterate and they receive feedback. We are seeing a lot of the cases where they use our video models to visualize some of the ideas pretty easy and faster than how they did it before. And that's we can kind of see that repetitive in across different industries.
That's interesting. Kirby, are you a black sheep today as an artist and a filmmaker who loves and embraces these tools?
Sort of, yeah. It's divisive for sure. Yeah, and you'll just get a lot of heat for. There's just people out there who are just dedicated to just scouring the internet for AI and then talking shit about you in the comments. So yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Well, that's not fun. Maybe they're using AI to
generate the shit talking, possibly.
But the reason I ask is because I've seen a couple interesting debates about OpenAI's go-to-market, for example, where I don't know if you guys have seen any of the ads, but yesterday I tweeted, I got served an ad on Reddit that was from ChatGPT, and it was like, make your dog look like Marie Antoinette. And I was like, that feels very 2023 and sort of like a very goofy, basic use case that in my mind actually sells OpenAI and ChatGPT short. I am curious, like, because you guys are working in creativity and artistic expression, how you win over tastemakers, but also maybe delight the amateur who's like, oh, I can turn my song lyrics from college into a song. So like, how are you guys thinking about kind of nailing that quality balance or that excitement so that it's not just the Redditor who's like, oh, I want to turn my dog into Marie Antoinette. Maybe I'll start with you, Ali.
Yeah, for us, this is how we started. The company got started out of masters at NYU. The three of us met at our art program. That's where we come from. So we have been mostly designing the models and the tools that we as artists want to use. And for that, we understand that there's some things that we cannot compromise, such as fine-grained control over the outputs. That's what the users who uses us, the projects that they have in mind require that kind of like fine-grained control over the outputs. It's not just write some prompt and give me something back, I'm going to use that. They have an idea and we want to help them achieve that idea that they have in mind. And for that, we have been obsessing on having more controllability tools, but as well as having better and bigger models that can have better consistency over time and that can eventually create longer and better outputs.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think controllability and editability are sort of like where we're going. I think that we've had a bunch of model launches, and each one has better audio fidelity, better audio features than the past. But I think that moving forward, we're kind of moving from the more explore side of the spectrum to exploit. I think Studio is a great example of a go-to-market action and targeting of a specific type of user who is looking for that controllability and editability in their workflow. And so, this is things like allowing, one example of this is we have a feature called Generative Stems. And so if you have a song, you can stem it out to specific instrumental tracks and then actually condition on that specific track to then create a very specific sound. And so, we work with these artists more and more every single day. We host a bunch of writing camps and we try to understand the pain points of these artists. And so it's really coming full circle where it's starting from open-ended kind of generation, which I think still appeals to a lot of people who don't know where to start, and then building that suite of much more controllability over time.
I don't know about the low end, but like from a creative perspective, like I think it just has to be indistinguishable from real footage and real music. Like that's the gold standard for me. Like it just has to blend in and nobody knows. And that's the gold standard for creativity. It look like everything we've always been doing.
But you want nobody to know because it's smoothing rough edges, essentially, metaphorically, or helping.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that AI actors. Do you want to get into the?
Are people familiar with the Tilly Norwoods controversy?
Is this viral? It's viral.
I see a couple of people laughing. Okay, so basically, there was a startup supposedly announced that they were going to have a fully AI actress get professional representation, and basically the IP would then be used in various films, advertisements, etc. And a lot of folks in Hollywood really hated this idea. Right?
I mean, it's just a PR thing, right? Like, it's just some sort of PR concoction. It's just completely generic. Like, I don't know what they spat it out of, like Sora or whatever, just like simple prompts and like spat out a girl talking. Like, it's completely uninteresting creatively, and it's very short-sighted. I think. But you can get some headlines, but then
to turn it into a productive question for you experts, I think it speaks to this idea that at least for some people today, fully AI generated copycats create backlash, at least with some folks. So what could how do you guys try to help your users not do that and fall into that, and what can we all as a tech community do to kind of push higher quality that people should like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're in an interesting moment where, unfortunately, there is stigma kind of associated with generating with these tools. And so at Suno, we're artists first, and we focus on the creator. It's all about amplifying imagination of someone. Anyone can be an artist, anyone can be a musician, anyone can be a creative, and it's about allowing them to do that in a much better way. And so, unfortunately, I do think that visuals that are too AI, or maybe like rhetoric that's too AI forward, can tend to move us back. And so, we try to promote and also work with artists who are willing to show their faces, who are willing to showcase their humanness. Obviously, you can showcase your humanness and artistry without showing your face, obviously. We have a lot of musicians that have done that in the past, but I think in this specific moment, it is really it's important to show that humanness, and sometimes it comes through with actual faces and actual user generated content.
Yeah, for us, it's pretty much the same. As I said, we work with people who want to have some ideas in mind, and we want to help them achieve those ideas. We're tool makers. We make tools. Our models and our products are meant and designed for them to create this kind of outputs, and we celebrate those things as well. We have an AI film festival that we have been running for 3 years, where we invite people who are exploring with these technologies, who are using it, who are seeing how they can tell stories using these tools, and most often they don't necessarily come from a creative background. We also bring new people that has been excited about telling stories that they couldn't tell before. I always share this example of I met a doctor who his dream was to be a filmmaker, but he went on and studied medicine, and then he had a family, and you can imagine that becoming a filmmaker was like not on his plans. But then he had these tools, and he was able to start sharing those stories, and he started participating in this festival, and we're starting to see and watch these stories that were very hard to see before. So we try to welcome these kind of creators to our platform.
My guess is that AI actors won't be much of a thing. Like I just think by the time you prompt it and zhuzh it and, fiddle with it enough to make it work, you're better off just hiring a person than sticking a camera in front of them. So I think that will be a limitation going forward. Like I don't see AI generated actors really being much of a thing, except from brilliant people who have really creative ideas and can use them as some sort of a joke or something like that.
Well, I would push back that my understanding is that CAA and the big agencies are thinking about, is there scenarios where actors who maybe get injured and, they have to leave the set?
Yeah, I think support stuff, it could do that. Yeah, like filling holes and stuff like that. I think that could be a thing, yeah.
Or we've all seen the Uncanny Valley de-aging that Robert De Niro was subjected to.
And Carrie Fisher was a CGI generated thing in the Star Wars.
Do you guys feel like right now your tools, and broadly speaking the tools that you play with, are they more raising the ceiling or the floor, like for amateurs or for experts?
I think in our case is a little bit of both. I think I've been lucky enough to meet people from everywhere now, and teams from every corner in the world. I see people who has always been wanting to create very ambitious films in non-traditional places. I come from Chile, and when I traveled there, I met filmmakers who have been dreaming on thinking on creating sci-fi movies with very large budgets, but because they are from there, it's very complicated to create a movie or a feature film. So for them, it's like they're being able to now create and think on larger projects. And for some other people who has been in the industry, they are now finding ways to not create different things or more ambitious things, but maybe explore this from a different way. I think the best conversations that I've had is from, for instance, VFX artists who are not treating this as a replacement of their tool. It's just another tool that can deliver other type of outcomes and different times and with different ways of working. And for them, the best results that I've seen is from those who are seeing this as a new kind of tool that can be treated differently.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's both the ceiling and the floor. I think, maybe just an anecdote on, I too have met a lot of people around the world. I think I get texts every single week of pretty heartwarming stories of someone who's never been able to afford music lessons, never able to actually be able to afford a musical instrument. Maybe, the other day I got a text from a friend saying that, she was working at a homelessness clinic and someone told her, this is keeping me alive through violence on Skid Row. Like it's things like that where, oh wow, this person can be a musician. This person feels like they're a musician. And so I think that the accessibility of this tool to make someone feel creative is really, really powerful. And then on, raising the ceiling, I think of artists as like, it's all subjective, right? Like I hesitate to say that we're raising the ceiling, but I think that for artists who might run into roadblocks in their process, every artist has the thing that they feel really proud of. The lead that you create, or maybe the lyrics that you write, and so that will always be very holy and owned by the artist and very 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 like art. It is who they are. But Suno and Runway and others, allow them to move past the roadblock when they say, oh, actually, I want to also have a vocal on top of this. I wonder how these lyrics sound like in this style. And so, oftentimes the process is quite tedious, as you referred to earlier. And so it allows them to, be able to imagine different versions and then ultimately create a better product.
I think it's mostly raising the floor, but I think the effect of that is that it does raise the ceiling. Sort of like if you're playing a video game and you sort of dial up the speed and the strength or whatever of your character, then like you've got a better fighter or whatever. Like that's the way it works. Like if you can shore up your weaknesses, like if you're weak at structuring scripts, or you're weak visually, or you're weak at publicizing your work or whatever, like whatever sort of realm you are weak in, you can dial those up, and I think that makes you stronger overall.
So I think you guys have a unique opportunity and challenge given that you work with artists in a very creative side of AI. But for other founders in the room, is there an unlock from having to work with these users and these models that you think could either help founders in other areas of AI learn from this from a building standpoint, or maybe they could build you something that would be useful to you internally? Ali, anything that come to mind?
Yeah, as I said, I think in our case, since we work with artists, with creatives, we have, as I said, over obsessed on adding more ways of control, and that's kind of like how we approach everything that we build. I think it's easy to fall in love with the technology kind of a thing and say like, oh, we have this kind of new technology, let's build a solution on top of this new model or this new architecture, when you should operate on top of a principle of an idea that you want to achieve or something that you want to solve. In our case, it was pretty early, the idea of creating a 2 hours feature film fully generated, not from one shot fully generated, but tools that allow people to create that 2 hour feature film. And we have seen different changes on the technology over these past 8 years, but we have always been operating on top of one principle rather than on what's the latest tech available.
I would say do things that don't scale. Like, you're working with people who have been in their respective industries with existing distribution networks. For Suno, we host writing camps. And so it's literally multi-day events where we have musicians come in, we talk to them, we understand them. It's a very kind of like intense feedback session for us. And it also allows them to, organically understand and love the product and then spread by word of mouth. I think word of mouth is not always going to be necessary, but I think is very necessary for creative tools. So yeah, do things that don't scale.
Well, I'd like to cast a vote as a creative. Grunt work, the tedious stuff that I don't want to do, definitely help me with that. But also the hybrid approach where like I start with something that is mine, I put it into the system, and it maintains the humanness of me and alters it or whatever. Stuff like that.
Well, I feel like next year we need to come back and you guys should just help Kirby make something, and I will just narrate what's going on as a broadcaster. Cool. Well, thanks so much for the expertise. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.